When I first got started in network marketing, I was a broke chicken chopper from a town no one had ever heard of. I wasn't fast, I wasn't flashy, and I sure wasn't famous. I was just willing to show up and learn, to stay long enough to get good, and that tended to make all the difference. Today, after 48 years in this profession, I learned that success isn't about being lucky, about being perfect, or being early. It's about being willing to stay when others walk away. It's about mastering the long game, and that's what I want to talk to you about today. If I can build a life like this, starting as a broke small-town kid cutting chickens, anyone can. There are 1,000 times I thought I could have quit, but every time I didn't, my vision grew stronger. In network marketing, the ones who win aren't the loudest. They're the ones who last. You don't need a perfect start. You need a long view. Flash in the pan success burns out. Legacy builders light a fire that never goes out.
Richard Bliss Brooke here. We are live.
We sit here today with none other than
Mark Victor Hansen,
Bob Proctor.
This is Kendra Hall,
Tanya Stringer,
Jack Canfield,
Whit Jones,
James Clear,
Les Brown.
So when I was first introduced to network marketing, I did work in a chicken plant. I wasn't actually cutting chickens at that point. I was teaching other people how to cut chickens, but I did start cutting chickens up on a production line. I was working like 60 hours a week, making $1,200 a month. And I think one of the key distinctions about that could be helpful for people is I actually loved it. I actually had a vision for spending the rest of my career in the chicken plant. It didn't make any sense. The pay was lousy. The working conditions were lousy. But I just felt comfortable there. And you've probably all heard of, the comfort zone, right? So when my sponsor called me up, and he's a friend of mine, good buddy from high school, and he said, "Hey, come to a meeting, I'm going to learn how to make a lot of money." I said no, and I meant it. I really meant it. Why did I mean it? Well, in hindsight, because of my comfort zone. So when he said meeting, that was obviously with strangers. That's outside my comfort zone. When he said $5,000 a month, way outside my comfort zone. And what we tend to think about outside our comfort zone is, we're disoriented. We don't belong there. We could get in trouble there. We don't know enough. We could make mistakes. We could get taken advantage of. We could get lost. That's what it sounds like to visualize being outside your comfort zone. So I said no. Why? Comfort. The chickens were comfortable. I was safe there. I knew what I was doing. I knew what tomorrow looked like. I knew how to advance. I knew how to win the game at the chicken plant. Wasn't much of a game, but I guess winning's better than not winning, right? No matter what the game is. So the distinction, the lesson to learn here is when people tell you no, they very well might mean it. And we should respect that, honor that. One of the greatest distinctions and strategies I've developed that it's allowed me to be here long term and still loving what I do is the distinction of honoring the no. It's one of the 8 steps of the authentic networker. Honor the no. What does that mean? It means when somebody tells you no, honor them, right? It's their life. It's their money. It's their values. But what do we tend to do in our profession? Well, the people that burn themselves out and burn everybody else out, they argue. Somebody says no, they go, "Oh, yeah, you're wrong. You need to do this. You need to try these products." "No, thanks. That's okay. I'm really not that interested. Those are too expensive. I don't have time. I don't want to sell." And I used to say silly things like, it's just like recommending a good restaurant or a good movie. And it is, except when we recommend a good movie or a restaurant, we're not asking the person we're recommending it for their money, so that we can make a profit. That is a subtle nuance that makes what we're doing different than recommending a movie or a restaurant. We're actually selling for revenue, for profit, for personal gain. It's a transaction. And so it's not like just recommending. Now, it could be, and it should be, right? Because when we recommend a good movie or a restaurant, it's okay with us if they don't go, right? Somebody says, "Hey, what's the best restaurant in town?" You say, "Oh, it's this Indian food over here. I don't like Indian food." Well, we don't argue with them, right? We don't say, "What do you mean you don't like Indian food? You should like Indian food. You should try it. You should get over there," right? So, but in network marketing, we argue. And what does that do? It burns us out, burns other people out. So, my sponsor, Steve, he didn't honor my no. He kept calling me back and harassing me, which is that why I ended up in the business? No, I ended up for another interesting distinction, which we should all pay attention to, which was I would have spent the rest of my career, I think, at the chicken plant had it not been for this guy named Earl Tooker that the company hired to run the chicken plant. And Earl Tooker had a master's degree in poultry husbandry. What is that? That's an advanced degree in the rearing and usefulness, perhaps, of poultry. Why somebody would get a degree like that, I don't know. How do you get a degree like that? University of Davis, UC Davis, California, they specialize in ag and, all that kind of stuff. That's where he got it. So he comes to work at Foster Farms and he lays down this policy that says you can't go anywhere further than Richard already was without a 4-year college degree. And I cheated to get out of high school. I never went to college. I never thought about going to college. And so all of a sudden, the whole deal at the chicken plant was over. Now, as soon as that happened, I didn't think, I need to call Steve and check out his deal. I didn't think that way at all. But the game had changed for me, right? The circumstances had changed. The circumstances under which I said no and meant it had changed. And so how's that map on to the attitude we need to be successful long-term in this business? Well, when people say no, I say you want to honor the no. You want to respect the no. You want to make sure they get it, that you get it, that you respect that, you honor it. You're not getting a overcome objections and closing thing from them. That's like, used cars and insurance. Don't do that here. If you want to be here 50 years from now, don't overcome objections. Don't close people. Honor people, open people, because guess what? Things change, right? Earl Tookers show up all over the place. So the person who says, no, I don't want to sell. Well, do they really mean that? No, of course they don't. They're actually selling you right now on that they don't want to sell. People sell anything they feel strongly about, right? They're telling you they don't want to sell because they don't feel strongly about whatever you're selling yet. But that could change, right? Something could change. How could it change? Well, they could learn more. They could learn more, maybe not about your products or your opportunity, but how I like to nurture people that say no is I like to educate them not about my product or my solution, but about the problem. So when I follow up with people that say no, it's not to say, are you ready yet? You want to try it yet? How about now? Is now a good time? Can we get together now? Have you thought about it? What about yes, not? That all lands as like being a neurotic nuisance. And that's why people don't like network marketers. How I follow up with people is send them information. Might be a podcast, might be a YouTube video, might be an infographic, might be a poem, might be a book, might be a TED Talk. It might be, just a blog or an article, anything on the problem. So, if you're selling, nutrition or weight loss, maybe what you nurture the people who say no with is the chronic problems that obesity caused in our country. And because that doesn't land as advertising. When somebody gets that, they're going to always, harassing me about this product. He's always telling me, but no, he's not. He's telling me about the problem. And I know obesity is a problem. And I know nutrition is a problem. And I know people not earning enough money is a problem. But what really effective follow-up that does not land for people as obnoxious or badgering them is educating them more and more and more on the problem. Because when they get really clear on the problem, they start being more open to a solution. And all of this is in the context of no means no to the person who says it. To you and I, what no needs to mean is not now. And if you'll have it mean not now, then you won't find yourself arguing with the prospect because it's not now. It's later. So what I want is an opportunity to stay in conversation with you, stay in relationship with you. And I'm not going to get that if I argue with you and make a nuisance or be obnoxious or be one of those, high pressure, righteous salespeople telling everybody what they should do with their money and their life. You should buy this. You should try this. You should lose weight. You should take this kind of nutrition. You should make more money. You should retire early. You should drive a nicer car. The obnoxious network marketer shoulds all over everybody. And they don't like that. And so if you do that, you're not going to get a chance to be there when the no means not now. It might be 6 months from now. It might be 6 years from now. But if you're playing the long game, 6 years works, right? Why? Well, because if you're playing the long game, you're going to be looking to enroll people 6 years from now. How do I know that? I'm entering my 48th year. And I enrolled somebody last month and I enrolled somebody this month. And I'm going to be looking to enroll somebody next month. I'm on kind of a low-level pace of one a month. 48 years later. Why? Well, why not? Why not keep building it? Why not keep giving people the opportunity to have the life that I had? I mean, that's kind of how one of the ways I pay it back is continuing to ask people to take a look at the right time in the right circumstances. And if they're ready, enroll them. And if they're ready, onboard them and guide them and coach them and inspire them and let them fail and let them succeed. And, ultimately it's up to them. It's not up to me. But that's just staying in the game, right? So there's not very many people in our profession that have been doing this for 48 years and are still doing it and still love it. Not very many. Why is that? Well, because too many people not playing the long game. They're playing the short game. They're playing the how fast can I get to the top of the comp plan? They're playing the how can I get in this company before everybody else gets in it so they can be on my team? They're playing the, how much money can I make and how fast can I make it? As though that's some badge of honor. And yet, unfortunately, it is, right? Because if you listen to people being introduced, you'll hear introductions like, built to the top of the comp plan in 5 different companies. Well, what does that tell you? Don't follow that person anywhere because they keep starting over, right? They may be able to recruit, but they can't pick a company. And so what kind of company do you need to pick if you want to be here long term? Well, you might want to think about picking a company that's going to be here 50 years from now. And you may not think that's relevant now, but I'm telling you, 50 years is coming. And if you're still in the game, you want your company to be still in the game. You still want to get paid 50 years from now. You don't think about it year one. You don't think about, this is really important that I still get paid 50 years from now. No, you're thinking more about, how do I make $500 my first month and $1,000 my second? And how do I get to this rank? And how do I win a contest? And, maybe how do I make enough money so I can get to be full time? And those are all great, worthy goals. But the overriding one needs to be, how do I do this in such a way that I'm still getting paid 50 years from now? Which might even be 100 years from now. I mean, why not? There's network marketing companies that are already over 60 years old. There are network marketing companies that are already paying 5 generations of people. Meaning this. 5 generations ago, somebody built the income. They passed it on to their kids, who passed it on to their grandkids, who passed it on to their great-grandkids. So great-great-grandkids, I guess, would be 5 generations. I know that is happening already in our profession. I don't have any clients that are 5th generation, but I have clients that are 3rd generation, meaning their grandparents built the income. The parents inherited it. They passed away. Now the grandkids have it. They don't know what to do with it, which is maybe why they call me. And so they want to build it, right? And my gosh, this has lasted for 50, 60 years. What would happen if we built it? So the long game is coming at you, whether you play it or not, right? So you want to be there for it or it passes you by. And so how you want to do that is just, pick the most boring company. Why? Well, boring companies tend to be the companies that have been around the longest. But what does it tell you if a company's been around the longest? It means they have proven they know how to be here for the long term. Almost every company in the profession is promising, we're going to do this. We're going to reinvent this. We're going to be the best at this. We're going to achieve this. All promises. And yet 99% of them go out of business. So if you want to play the long game, don't pay any attention to promises, no matter how grand they are, no matter who makes them. Pay attention to proof. And of course, you have to love the products, right? You have to authentically love the products. What does that mean? It means you would use them whether you were a distributor or not. And you would use them every day, every month. You would consume them. So you have to authentically be a raving fan of those products. So you got to pick a company that's been around as long as possible, that has products that you authentically love, right? And then you just got to stay in the game. Now, how do you stay in the game on a daily basis? This is another distinction, a nuance, critically important, and that is you got to fall in love with the process. Don't fall in love so much with your goals. Have goals, crystal clear goals. Have strategies on how you're going to attain them, but don't fall in love with the goals, because oftentimes you and I achieving our goals isn't entirely up to us. So let's say you want to win the contest, right? You want to think a company announces a contest and, the number one gets first class airfare and blah, 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 and gets stage time. And you go, I'm going to win the contest. Well, that's great. It's a good goal to have, but don't fall in love with it. Why? Well, there's probably 100 other people that also have a goal to win that contest, and there's only one winner, only one grand prize winner. So what are the odds it's going to be you? Be like 1 out of 100. Right? Because let's just assume they're all just as capable and just as motivated as you are. So don't fall in love with the goal, fall in love with the process. What is the process? Well, how do you win? How do you, let's say not win grand prize of the contest, but how do you win, right? Winning in network marketing is building something that pays you for life, not just your life, but generations of lives. That's winning. If you have some other objective, like see how much money you can make and how fast you can make it, network marketing is actually not the best place to do that. There's other places where you can make more money faster than network marketing. Network marketing has a generational duplication gestation period where you don't actually get deep in the money until your team is 4, 5, 6 generations deep in terms of the exponential growth. And that takes time. It actually takes years. The book, The 4-Year Career, right? That's the shortest period of time once you actually start doing the work, where you can tap into 4th and 5th generation people. Now, is it possible to do it quicker? Yes, it is possible. But it's more probable that it's going to take at least 4 years or longer. And it's just because it takes a while for people to get in and get comfortable and get traction and get momentum, and then, build their own team. And when they start building their own team, that's when your team grows into like the 4th and 5th generation. So what do you need to do to create that, right? What's the single daily action? What's the one thing, the biggest lever that if you pull it, it's inevitable that your team will grow? And that one thing boils all the way down to you asking people to take a look. That is the single daily action on which all things in network marketing grow. You can do all kinds of things. You can post all day on social media. You can troll social media all day. You can organize your paper clips. You can get all your graphics and your logos and your scripts and your databases and all organized and perfect. And that won't make you any money at all. You could ask 3 or 4 people a day to take a look at what you're doing and not do anything else and build an empire, not follow up, not train, not coach. Just ask people to take a look. And because most organizations have so many upwardly mobile systems and cultural benefits that when people join the team, they just learn, right? They learn about the products. They learn about the comp plan. They learn about the company. They learn about how to do things. Not everybody needs to be a coach or a trainer. I'm not advocating don't train and coach. I would advocate train and coach. But my point is, you could actually not train and coach. And if you just asked, well, some people will get in. And if some people will get in, then some people will do what you're doing, and then other people will get in. And that's how you get second generation, and then third generation, and fourth generation. You want to keep in mind this fundamental law and rule that makes network marketing work. And that is that everyone can. Not everyone should, not everyone will, but everyone can. Everyone could enroll in such a way that they can enroll others. Every company's a little bit different. Maybe you have to buy a $50 kit. Maybe you have to check a few boxes. Maybe you have to watch a few videos to get certified. Whatever it is that you have to do to be a distributor or a brand partner or a consultant or an affiliate or whatever they call them, right? So that you have the ability to recruit other people, whether they end up as customers or they also end up as distributors. What defines network marketing is everyone has the right to put themselves in that position where they can do what you're doing, right? So if I recruit you, you can join in such a way or advance in such a way so that you can recruit others and they can join in such a way that they can recruit others. That's where the four who get four, who get four, who get four comes from. Never gets built that way, but it just shows you what's possible. It's more like how a family, generations of rabbits get built, or lily pads perhaps get built. It's more organic and random than the math, but it's all about compounding. And that's why network marketing is just one of, if not the greatest wealth building models on the planet for somebody who perhaps isn't starting with a couple of $1 million, right? So I don't know if you had a network marketer start off and you had somebody with $2 million start off, and it's a long-term marathon as to who builds more wealth after 30 years. Maybe the person with $2 million can compete with a network marketer, maybe even win for sure, right? Or they could lose it all, right? Maybe if they put it in Bitcoin, they'd win. But that might depend on when they sold, right? Or if they just put it in the stock market, they would tie the network marketer. Or if they put it in a savings account, they would lose. Or maybe if they got reckless and they, instead of invested, they were traders, they definitely lose it. But maybe if you start with $2 million, you compete. But if you don't start with any money, there's just no better way to build wealth. Where's the wealth come from? It's not like that you've piled up tens of millions of dollars, although you could if you were frugal with your money. The wealth comes from the income, right? So if I have, $10,000 a month in income, and that income has been tested. What do I mean by tested? Meaning, the company has had some challenges. There's been some strong competition in the market. I've had maybe some of my team quit. We have worked through adversity, including that I have sort of backed off. I'm not driving that income anymore. And it's $10,000 a month. Maybe if I'm driving it, it's $15,000 a month. Maybe in a really up year, it's $17,000 a month. But if I'm not driving it and we're going through sort of normal adversity, it's $10,000 a month. So it's bottomed out, right? It's been tested that even through thick and thin, even with me backing off, I earn $10,000 a month. Now, what is that worth? Well, an easy formula is just multiply the monthly income times 200. It's $2 million is what that's worth. How do we know that? How do you calculate that? Well, how much cash would you have to have invested to make 10 grand a month? Well, it depends where you invest it, right? If you just put it in a savings account, right now you're going to get about 4% if it's a good savings account. So that's more than 2 million, but 2.5 million you'd probably have to have, or 3 million. If you put it in the stock market, it might be a little less. But of course, stock market goes up and down, and it depends what you put it in the stock market, all that kind of stuff. But why is that wealth so valuable? Well, because it's not made by one person. It's not made by you, right? That $10,000 a month is not you outselling product. If it was just you outselling product, I couldn't call it wealth, because what happens if you get sick? What happens if your family member gets sick and you can't go out and sell product? Now you can't earn 10 grand a month. That's not wealth. That's a job, right? But if you're earning $10,000 a month, you probably have at least 500 sources of income earning you $10,000 a month. What do I mean by 500. It's like 4 who get 4. That's 16. There's a total of 20 people now. And if the 16 get 4, that's 64. Now there's a total of 84 people now. And if the 64 get 4, that's 256. Now there's a total of 340 people. Most of them are customers. Some of them are sales leaders who are also customers. We don't get paid on sales leaders. We don't get paid on recruiting. We only get paid on customers. Doesn't matter if they're just a customer or they're a distributor who's also a customer. They're all customers, right? So we get paid on customer volume. Residual income, the money that comes in every month in and month out, that comes from customers that buy every month over and over and over again, right? So at the 340 mark, my 10 grand a month is coming from 340 people. Doesn't even include me. So one of them can stumble, one of them can quit, one of them can not order this month. Doesn't impact my income. My income's spread out over 340 sources. It's like kind of like you're a franchise owner. You can own a McDonald's franchise. That's great. Probably make $1 million a year. But you earn a lot more if you own 340 McDonald's. Even if you only owned 1% of 340 McDonald's, not only would you make more money, but you'd have total freedom, right? Because you don't have to show up to the McDonald's every day if you own 1% of 340 of them. This is what it's like to build wealth in network marketing. But to do it, you have to play the long game. You have to be patient and yet at the same time have a sense of urgency. But most importantly, you have to fall in love with the process. The process that builds all of this is you asking people to take a look and letting them decide if now's the right time, if they understand the problem well enough to be ready for a solution. And if they're not, don't argue with them. Don't overcome their objection. Don't close them. Open them. How do you open them? Listen to them. Ask them questions like curiosity questions, not stupid questions like, do you keep your income options open? Or, just be curious, learn about people and develop a relationship. Because if they say no now, things change, right? Earl Tooker's coming sometime in their life and maybe they'll be open, right? So that's the long game. And the advantage to the long game is network marketing then just becomes a way of life. It's peaceful. It's prosperous. You don't burn out your network. You don't burn out your family. You don't burn out your friends. You don't burn out your spouse. You don't burn out your primary income. Another great distinction and piece of playing the long game is you don't have to be full-time in network marketing. You don't ever have to be full-time. In fact, you're probably way better off if you never are full-time. If you make $10,000 a month in network marketing, you're not a 1%er. You're 1/10 of 1%er. You're 1 out of 1,000. You're a rarefied air if you make 10 grand a month. I mean, you've hit a walk-off grand slam if you make 10 grand a month in tested residual income that's going to last for generations, right? But if you're full-time and you make 10 grand a month, you're broke like everybody else. Unless you happen to live in a really low overhead environment. But if you're part-time and you make 10 grand a month, you're rich. Because what you tend to do is live off your full-time income, and then you can save and invest your part-time income, which allows you to kind of create the trifecta of wealth building, right? If you could take your network marketing income and invest it in real estate and equities. So you build up a real estate portfolio, you build up equities, a stock portfolio that over time can be worth hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, and you still have the income coming in every month. And then you think about retirement. Most people end up retiring on 1/3 of what was never enough for their whole life that they struggled and skimped and saved, and now they retire and they get Social Security and they get whatever, their 401k, but now they're going to live their golden years just kind of riding out the clock, watching the pennies. They're certainly not going to travel the world first class. Not most people, not in the traditional retirement paradigm. There's so much freedom and so much possibility and so much fun and so many relationships in doing this right that it makes the work worth it for me. And I can only speak for me. Will the work be worth it for you? Totally up to you. But I strongly believe that depends on how you go about doing the work and how you fall in love about going with the work and what you actually end up building. Because if you end up building something that falls apart and you have to change companies every 5 years and you have to end up talking to people that you don't know because nobody else will talk to you, you probably find the work is not worth it. But if you play the long game, I'm here to tell you, at least from my life, the work is worth it. The profession works if you work it, and it works better the longer you stay. So wherever you are today, at the start, in a slump, or scaling up, trust the long game. Build something your future self will thank you for.